There is a reason this video exists, and it is not the reason you think. You were told that intelligence comes from education, from years of study, from accumulating degrees and credentials. But Machiavelli discovered something 500 years ago that the powerful have hidden ever since. Intelligence is not knowledge. Intelligence is pattern recognition. And in the next 20 minutes, you're going to learn 7 patterns that will make you see things other people miss. But here's what nobody tells you. Once you see these patterns, you cannot unsee them. Your relationships will look different. Your workplace will look different. Every conversation will reveal things that were always there but invisible to you before. So if you want to stay comfortable in your current reality, leave now. Because what comes next changes how you see the world permanently. The first pattern is this. Most people are not listening to you. They are waiting for their turn to speak. Watch any conversation today. Really watch it. You will see something disturbing. Person A is talking. Person B's eyes are glazed. Not because they are bored, because they are rehearsing their response. They stopped processing what person A said 3 sentences ago. They are performing listening while actually planning their next statement. Machiavelli watched advisors do this to princes. The prince would explain a complex situation. The advisor would nod. Then the advisor would give advice that had nothing to do with what the prince just said, because the advisor was not listening. He was waiting. This is not occasional. This is constant. 90% of human conversation is 2 people waiting instead of 1 person listening and 1 person speaking. But here is where it gets useful for you. Once you see this pattern, you gain a massive advantage. While everyone else is rehearsing their response, you actually listen. You hear what they are really saying. You catch the details they reveal without knowing they revealed them. You notice the contradiction between their words and their tone. You see the thing they are trying to hide, and when you respond, your response is so precisely targeted to what they actually said that they experience something rare. The feeling of being truly heard. This creates instant rapport, instant trust, instant influence, not through manipulation, through actually doing what everyone else is pretending to do. Real listening is a superpower in a world where nobody listens. Learn it today, and you are already ahead of 90% of people you will ever meet. But there is a second layer to this pattern that most people miss. We will come back to it. Because the gap between what people say and what they mean is where real intelligence operates. And that gap only becomes visible once you master the second pattern. The second pattern is this. People tell you who they are immediately, but they do not use words. They use behavior. You meet someone new. They tell you about themselves. They describe their values. They explain their character. They present an identity. Most people believe this presentation. Then they are shocked 6 months later when the person acts completely differently. But here is what Machiavelli knew. The presentation is performance. The behavior is truth. Watch what they do in the first interaction, not what they say. Do they show up on time or make you wait? Do they ask about you or only talk about themselves? Do they keep small commitments or break them casually? Do they treat service workers with respect or contempt? These behaviors in the first meeting are not accidents, they are previews. The person who makes you wait 15 minutes without apology is telling you that your time has no value to them. The person who talks about themselves for 30 minutes without asking a single question about you is telling you that you exist to provide attention, not to be known. The person who promises to send you something and never does is telling you that their words mean nothing. They are showing you exactly who they are. Most people ignore these signals because the person is charming, or attractive, or useful. And 6 months later, when the relationship collapses, they say they never saw it coming. But it was there, in the first meeting, hidden in plain sight. Once you see this pattern, you stop getting blindsided by people. You see who they are immediately, not who they claim to be, who they demonstrate themselves to be through action. And here is the dangerous part. You also start seeing this pattern in yourself. The gap between who you think you are and who your behavior reveals you to be. That gap is where self-deception lives. And closing it is what separates the fool from the genuinely intelligent. But there is one behavior that overrides all others. One signal so reliable that Machiavelli said a prince should judge every person by it. We will get to that in pattern 5. Because first you need to understand pattern 3. And this one is going to make you uncomfortable. The third pattern is this. Your emotional reactions are not about the present. They are about the past. Someone says something in a meeting, and you feel rage. Someone forgets to text you back and you feel abandoned. Someone questions your idea and you feel attacked. Most people think these feelings are caused by the current situation. They are not. They are caused by a pattern your brain recognizes from your history. The rage is not about the comment. The rage is about every time you were dismissed as a child. The abandonment is not about the text. The abandonment is about the parent who was emotionally unavailable. The feeling of attack is not about the question. It is about the teacher who humiliated you in front of the class 15 years ago. Your brain is a pattern-matching machine. When something in the present resembles something from the past, your brain retrieves the emotional response from the past and applies it to the present. This happens below conscious awareness. You do not decide to feel rage. The rage arrives automatically because your brain matched the current pattern to a historical pattern and delivered the historical emotion. Most people are controlled by this their entire lives. They react to the past while believing they are responding to the present. They get angry at people who do not deserve their anger. They fear situations that are not actually dangerous. They avoid opportunities because the opportunity resembles a past failure. But here is where intelligence enters. Once you see this pattern, you can interrupt it. You feel the rage. Instead of acting from it, you pause. You ask where this rage came from. You identify the historical pattern. And suddenly the rage loses power because you see it for what it is. An outdated response to a situation that is not actually happening. This does not mean your feelings are invalid. It means your feelings are information about your history, not commands about the present. When you separate the two, you stop being controlled by emotions you did not choose and start making decisions based on reality instead of memory. Machiavelli watched princes destroy alliances because they felt insulted by something that was not actually an insult. The feeling came from their past. The action happened in the present. The damage was permanent. Do not be that prince. Learn to see which emotions are about now and which emotions are echoes from then. But one emotion overrides all logic. One feeling that even the most intelligent people cannot resist. And it is being used against you right now. Pattern 4 explains exactly how. The fourth pattern is this. Scarcity creates value. Abundance destroys it. This is not about objects. This is about you. When you are always available, you have no value. When you are selectively available, you become magnetic. Most people make themselves abundant. They answer every text immediately. They say yes to every request. They show up to everything. They make themselves completely accessible to anyone who asks. And then they wonder why nobody respects them, why their time gets wasted, why people take them for granted, because they trained everyone around them that access is unlimited. Machiavelli watched this in the courts. The advisor who was always available became invisible. His counsel was ignored. His presence was assumed. But the advisor who was rarely available became sought after. When he spoke, people listened. When he appeared, it meant something. Not because he was more intelligent, because he was more rare. Humans cannot help but value what is scarce. We chase what withdraws. We dismiss what chases us. This is hardwired into psychology. It does not matter if it is fair. It matters that it is real. So here is what you do with this pattern. You create scarcity around yourself deliberately. You do not answer every message immediately. You let some calls go to voicemail. You become strategically unavailable. Not to play games, but to communicate. Through action that your time has value and access to it must be earned. Watch what happens. People who took you for granted suddenly pay attention. People who ignored you suddenly seek your input. People who dismissed you suddenly respect your boundaries. Nothing about you changed except your availability, and that changed everything about how they see you. But here is the part nobody explains. Scarcity without quality is just absence. You must combine rarity with actual value. Which brings us to pattern 5. And this is the pattern Machiavelli said determines whether someone is trustworthy or dangerous. The 5th pattern is this. Watch what people do when they have nothing to gain. Everyone is kind when they want something from you. Everyone is respectful when you have power over them. Everyone performs virtue when they are being observed. But Machiavelli said the true character of a person is revealed only when they believe there are no consequences and no rewards. How does someone treat the person who cannot help them? How does someone behave when nobody important is watching? What does someone do when they could get away with cruelty? That is who they actually are. Everything else is performance. You see this everywhere once you look for it. The colleague who is charming to the boss but dismissive to the intern. The friend who is supportive when others are around but critical when it is just the two of you. The partner who is generous on special occasions but selfish in daily life. These are not contradictions. These are reveals. The public behavior is the mask. The private behavior is the face. Most people get this backwards. They believe the public version and explain away the private version. Then they are devastated when the private version becomes the permanent version. Here is how you use this pattern. You create situations where people have nothing to gain from you. You observe how they behave. You watch how they treat people who cannot help them. You notice what they do when they think nobody is looking. And you trust that behavior over any words they say, because behavior in low-stakes situations predicts behavior in high-stakes situations. The person who lies about small things will lie about large things. The person who is cruel when they have nothing to gain will be cruel when they have something to lose. The person who keeps their word when it costs them something is the only person you can actually trust. But there is one pattern that overrides even this. One mechanism so powerful that it determines whether you will succeed or fail at everything you attempt. Pattern 6 is the one most people never discover, and it is operating in your life right this second. The 6th pattern is this. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. You believe that success comes from discipline, from motivation, from wanting it badly enough. But Machiavelli knew that the strongest prince with the weakest environment loses to the weakest prince with the strongest environment, every time. Your willpower is limited. Your environment is constant. In a battle between the two, environment wins. You can be disciplined about eating healthy, but if your kitchen is full of junk food, you will lose. You can be motivated to wake up early, but if your bedroom is designed for entertainment instead of sleep, you will lose. You can be determined to focus on deep work, but if your phone is next to you buzzing with notifications, you will lose. Most people try to fight their environment with willpower. They fail. They blame themselves for lacking discipline. But the problem was never discipline. The problem was the environment. The intelligent person does not fight the environment. The intelligent person designs the environment so that the desired behavior is the path of least resistance. You want to eat healthy? Remove junk food from your house entirely. You want to wake early? Remove screens from your bedroom. You want to focus? Put your phone in another room. These are not willpower solutions. These are design solutions. And design beats willpower every single time. Machiavelli wrote that the prince must control the architecture of his court, not just the people, the physical and social architecture, where people sat, who had access to whom, what information flowed where, because architecture determines behavior more than character does. You are the prince of your own life. Design the architecture. Stop fighting yourself with discipline and start designing environments where success is automatic. But here is what nobody warns you about. Once you see all 6 patterns, you will see one final pattern that changes everything. And this one feels illegal to know. Because once you understand it, you cannot participate in most conversations the same way ever again. The 7th pattern is this. Most communication is not about information exchange. It is about status negotiation. 2 people are talking. On the surface, they are discussing a project, but underneath, they are determining who has more authority, who defers to whom, who gets to define reality. Every conversation has 2 layers, the content layer and the status layer. Most people only hear the content. But the real game is happening in the status layer. Watch any meeting. Person A makes a suggestion. Person B agrees but rephrases it slightly. Why? Because agreeing without modification would signal that person A has higher status. So person B agrees with the idea but adds something to signal equal or higher status. Person C asks a question that sounds like curiosity but is actually a challenge. The question is designed to make person A explain themselves, which temporarily places person C in the evaluator position, which is higher status. This is not occasional. This is constant. Humans are status negotiating machines. We cannot help it. It is evolutionary. Status determined survival for millions of years. Your brain is hardwired to track it and negotiate it in every interaction. Once you see this pattern, every conversation becomes transparent. You see who is trying to establish dominance. You see who is testing boundaries. You see who is secure and who is performing security. And most importantly, you see when you are being pulled into status, games that do not serve you. Here is how you use this. You stop playing status games with people who do not matter. You recognize when someone is trying to pull you into a negotiation and you simply do not engage. You respond to content and ignore status challenges. This is massively disorienting to people because the game only works when both people play. When you refuse to play, you communicate something powerful. You are operating on a different level. You are not competing for status because you are not in their hierarchy. This creates instant authority, not because you claimed it, because you demonstrated that you are beyond the game they are still playing. Machiavelli wrote that the greatest power is the power to be unaffected. When everyone around you is negotiating status and you are simply focused on truth and results, you become the only person in the room operating from actual intelligence instead of insecurity. And people sense it. They might not understand it, but they feel it, and they respond to it. You have now learned 7 patterns in 20 minutes. Real listening as advantage, immediate behavioral reveals, emotional reactions as historical echoes, scarcity as value creation, character revealed, when nothing is gained. Environment over willpower, status games underneath every conversation. These are not theories. These are mechanisms that Machiavelli observed operating in the most powerful courts in history. And they are operating in your life right now. The only question is whether you see them or whether you are blind to them. If you watch this for 20 minutes and you feel different, you are already dangerously smart, not because you gained information, because you gained sight. And sight is the only thing that separates the powerful from the powerless. Go use it.